Body dysmorphic disorder, or BDD, is a condition where people have intrusive and/or obsessive thoughts of the perceived flaws in their own physical appearance. People are preoccupied with a specific feature of their physical body in a negative way. The common psychological root here is that something about me is unacceptable. An important factor to consider is this: do I feel better about myself as I get healthier, or do my body image issues persist? Be very careful here to self-diagnose and understand where your feelings fall. This is the difference between a healthy and unhealthy body image. Whether it be eating disorders or body image issues, both of them have a core issue where someone isn't happy with what they see in the mirror. In their eyes, there's something fundamentally wrong about the way they look. People form an ideal body image in their mind of what they should actually look like, and then they turn to plastic surgeons, psychiatrists, psychologists, radical diets, or habit changes, etc. They do this and move towards their ideal state in their head. Historically, a lot of research in this area has focused on Caucasian women and only on the weight loss aspects of this. So there's a cultural skew here in the research, and it may also be biased toward a specific gender. As we research into this further, we see that various body image issues manifest differently in different groups of people all over the world. We observe body image issues slightly different between men and women, and no one is actually truly immune to the full effects of it. For every single man diagnosed with anorexia, there's 3 women diagnosed with anorexia. Men also have a different set of diagnostic criteria that have been factored in here. Muscular dysmorphia is a proposed new diagnosis that professionals are starting to explore, particularly in men. 45% of female and 25% of male college students overestimate their body size. About 2.2% of men have muscular dysmorphia, and at the same time, 2.2% of women have anorexia. Even though there's similarities in the mental health struggles around BDD, there are gender variations that are uncovering themselves through future research. Generally speaking, women will tend to focus on thinness and men will focus more on muscularity. So depending on the specific gender, there's actually nuances to this. Even though this approach is different between men and women, the root cause is still an unhappiness with what people see in the mirror. Intrigued by this, researchers recently dove deeper into male body image issues, and what they found was absolutely fascinating. They discovered that 25 to 68% of men who have body image issues have very critical or emotionally abusive parents. Parents attacking your appearance or being emotionally damaging seems to have a very high correlation with body image issues. In one specific study, researchers found that 28% of men who had body image issues had undergone some form of sexual abuse in the past. It is relevant and important to note that the research focuses mostly on bodybuilders. Social anxiety is one of the most common manifestations of body image issues. There's plenty of comparison and comparing up to others. Social media plays such a dangerous role here as well, because we have all the alpha beta nonsense that's been coming out. We have all the ick stuff. We have all the socially acceptable and not acceptable videos. And there's so much pressure constantly being pushed onto people every single day. There's an immense social pressure to conform what's thrown in our faces constantly all over social media. We put it into our heads that we have to look good and fit in to get likes and be liked. Men with body image issues are also shown to be high on the alexithymia scale, and this is where you have the inability to recognize or understand your emotions. They tend to feel a lot, but they aren't sure what they exactly feel. They're almost colorblind to emotions. When this happens, they start to form dynamic and complex narratives in their heads about how they feel about themselves. Another interesting aspect of BDD is that people with BDD actually see faces differently and have very noticeably different brain activity when observing faces. Overactivity can occur when they're looking at others. Additionally, over a quarter of people with BDD actually attempt suicide. Tying all of this in with my recent video on suicide with the researcher Natasha Kolviwat, it would be so fascinating to see if they actually contained these biomarkers that suggested that they had suicidal ideation as well. So how do you get rid of BDD? The first step is awareness. Try to think about it every time you judge yourself and harshly critique your appearance. Notice what you think every time you do this, and pay attention to how you're feeling. What emotions come out every time you're looking at yourself in the mirror? Becoming aware of all of this will be a helpful first step in trying to properly diagnose the issue. So there's this really fancy part of our brains called the default mode network, and it's responsible for forming a bit of our self-identity. The more you talk poorly about yourself and the more you look at yourself shamefully, the more your default mode network reinforces this and forms neural connections built off these beliefs. It's so important to treat yourself with grace and intentionally keep yourself accountable in positive and healthy ways to avoid forming an entire identity around BDD. Consider self-help strategies as well. Mindfulness, meditation, journaling, sunlight, exercise, nutrient-dense diets, good relationships, and a supportive network can work wonders for your mental health and help reduce symptoms around BDD. Cognitive behavioral therapy can also work wonders for your intrusive thinking and any maladaptive responses you might have. It helps people recognize distorted thoughts about their appearance, challenge negative thought patterns, and develop healthier beliefs and coping strategies. On top of those potential remedies, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, can slow the degradation of serotonin into the brain to help manage symptoms of BDD. Keep in mind that medication shouldn't just be your first go-to right away. Support groups with BDD as well can be so helpful in working through this because you'll have a supportive group of individuals who can talk through all their vulnerabilities with you, and you realize that you're not alone in these struggles. Let me know in the comments if you've ever dealt with BDD before. For those of you that are new here, my name's Jeff and Michael's to make psychology make sense. If you've been enjoying the content so far, any support for the channel would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for hanging out. BDD is so defeating and crippling. It can ruin your life and bring you to your knees begging for solutions and inner peace. By considering the information and strategies presented in this video, you can start to fight the good fight against BDD and help those around you also struggling with it. You're not alone, and there is hope here. I'll close with a story that really inspired me years ago. In my early college days, there was this one guy that was in tons of my classes, and he was extremely confident, but he wasn't exactly conventionally attractive. He was extremely skinny, kind of lengthy, had super messy hair, and wasn't really particularly tall. He didn't dress well and seemed kind of ill-mannered at times. Through all of this, he managed to be so sure of himself in conversation and group projects with the way he carried himself. Being fascinated by people and wanting to understand my friend more, I asked him jokingly one day after class when we were walking together, I said, "Where do you get it from? Where's all this confidence emitting from? It's so funny." And we would always mess with each other and poke fun at one another. And his response was absolutely incredible. He said, "Jeff, I have one body. It's the only one I'll ever get. My face is never going to change. My height is never going to change. I'm literally just me." The earlier you realize that, the sooner you realize how proud you can be, because no one in this world is exactly like you. And that's super cool, right? He forever shifted the way I looked at myself from that day on. I truly hope you find value in this episode, and I appreciate you watching today. If you're interested in other topics in psychology, be sure to check out my last video on one of the coolest jobs you've never heard of. So for all things psychology to help you think, feel, and perform better, stay tuned right here on Psychology of Living.